So welcome everybody. So today it's all about the breath of life. But before we get on to that, should we just light the chalice just to get that? Is anybody would like to light the chalice? And I hear it's somebody's birthday today, or somebody's 80th birthday. We have a card for you. There you go.
Very much indeed. Ready one again. Ready one again.
Yeah. So, I'd like to say a few words. We come here at the changing of the seasons, giving gratitude for the blessings of the past year. The light from the chalice reminds us that connection with life. And with each breath we breathe, we give thanks for another opportunity to dwell on these positive thoughts. So with that, we go into our first hymn, which is number 46, The Breath of God. So the breath of life. I'm just going to read out something I found from mygoodtimestory.com by Coach Muller. It's called One More Breath. So he writes, "Life, it is so precious. It is the essential thing that allows us to experience the beautiful things in the world around us. Whether it be smelling a lovely aroma, tasting scrumptious food, listening to soul-moving music, seeing the beauty and grandeur of some scenic location, or simply touching something meaningful to you. All of life should be prized and cherished. But how many times throughout our lives do we forget the gift of life and all that goes along with it, and take it for granted? Enjoying time with your families and friends, having dinners or parties with loved ones, traveling some destination, experiencing good or bad times with others, or simply just spending time by yourself, relishing and appreciating the world around us. Life is good and worth living. But it all can be gone in a second. I recently came across a copy of a letter written by a miner to his loved ones that was posted in the United Mine Workers Journal in August 1974. The letter was written in 1902 by Jacob L. Vowell in Fratterville, Tennessee. In the short letter, he tells his dear wife how much he loves her and the kids. He tells her to take care of the children and actually communicates to her where to bury him. The amazing thing about this letter was how he kept referring to the important things in life, the things that really mattered, his family and God. You see, he only had moments to live, for he was slowly suffocating to death in the 1902 Fratterville, Tennessee mine disaster. The second to the last sentence he wrote really touched my heart and reminds me how precious life really is and how much we should value it in every day of our lives. So this is it. Ellen, darling, goodbye for us both. Albert said the Lord has saved him. We are all praying for air to support us, but it is getting so bad without any air. Ellen, I want you to live right and come to heaven. Raise the children the best you can. Oh, how I wish to be with you. Goodbye. Bury me and Albert in the same grave by little Eddie. Goodbye, Ellen. Goodbye, Lily. Goodbye, Jemmy. Goodbye, Horace. It's 25 minutes after 2, and there's a few of us alive yet. Jake and Albert. Oh God, for one more breath. Ellen, remember me as long as you live. Goodbye, darling. It's a bit of a harrowing letter, but it's, he's writing to the one he loves in his last moments, and, he's cherished that connection with his wife and children, and he's remembering that, knowing that, it could be taking his last breath. So it's easy for us to take that for granted, our breath that we breathe, and, something we do automatically, subconsciously, every day, every minute, every second. So it just takes, it's nice just to take a moment to remember that. And as we go into a little bit later, we can use that for our own purposes. It can be a tool for us to use. But let's, on that note, go on to our next hymn. Just as long as I have breath. So when I think about the breath of life, I automatically think of CPR and my training as a first aider. You know, it used to be that you 2 breaths in and 15 pumps of the breastbone and keep the heart going. So that's what I automatically think of, which is quite poignant, really, as we'll find out a little bit later. How we can give our breath to somebody else and give life to them, it's quite a gift. And so it reminds me also of when my eldest daughter was first born, Kylie, and the nurse she came out and the nurse blew on her. I suppose, you know, they're very still, or they can be. Sometimes they're crying. But she was quite still, you know, obviously chilled. And then she blew on her face, the nurse blew on her face, and she came alive, started crying, and like, oh, what's happening? So it came a relief for me when I saw that. You know, okay, she's fine. And they do the checks and everything. And then, of course, I'm not the first to hold the child, because the mother is. So I stood patiently, waiting for my turn. And eventually it was my turn, and I held her in my arms, and then I felt her breath on my face. And that felt like a gift. You know, that first breath of my first daughter. It was very special to me. So I remember that fondly. But there's other ways of using the breath. I used to train a lot, and as you get older, you have to be very careful when you're training. You know, your heart rate goes up quite a bit, and I used to try and keep it below 160. So I was on the treadmill one day, and I'm watching the heart rate go up and up, and I'm thinking, I'd rather got to stop or do something about it. So what I did is I started to breathe more deeper, you know, hold the breath a little bit more, so it gives the time for the oxygen to get around the body. And as I did this, because it's not natural, because you're breathing harder and faster, and I think that's why the oxygen is harder to get around the body. So I started to breathe slower, which is not instinctive when you're running. And it slowly started to bring the heart rate down, so it came down to 140, which was fine, and so I could continue running. And then go up again, 160, and I breathe and come down 140, and I kept doing this cycle just to keep my heart rate within a limit that was comfortable for me. So you can actually use the breath as well as it gives you life. Gives you life. You also can use it for various means. I used to use it when I was scuba diving as well. When you go down, I used to have weights to get me down to the bottom of the ocean, but you have to have buoyancy. And the way you do this, you put air into your suit, but sometimes it's too much, and you start rising too much, or then you let it out and you start falling too much. So it's a very careful balance using air to support yourself and keep you at a certain level in the ocean. So the more air you put into the suit, the faster you rise, because it expands. So I used to go down to there's some lots to see while you're scuba diving. So I used to just breathe shallow. And so when I breathed in, it just raised me up a little bit, a foot or so. And I breathe out, and it just lowered me down towards the seabed. And in that way, I could control my ascent and descent. So it was really good. But I used to breathe very shallow, and so my dives used to last very, very long time. So I used to watch the people that was diving with me to check their air how much air they had in their bottles, in case they run out of air. So that was quite interesting. I always came out from a dive having plenty of air in my cylinders, which was okay when I was with instructors and they was experienced, and we'd have nice long dives. So that was fine. But it's a tool, and we use it in various ways. So the breath of life, or the breath of God, what does that mean in a religious context? A lot of scriptures can be allegorical, give us a message in a way that we might understand, and not always a direct meaning. But every scripture tells us a similar story of how we were created, and it uses the breath of life. So the breath of God in the Bible is a metaphor for the Holy Spirit, which is God's creative and life-giving presence. The Hebrew word for the breath of God is ruach, which can be translated as wind, spirit, or life. So in Genesis 2, verse 7, it says, "The Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." It makes sense, breathing life-giving air into our bodies would keep us alive. Whether we believe the whole story, I think there's a wider message there that is probably harder for us to understand. But in other different Gospels, like the Gnostic Gospels, Sophia, who was a feminine aspect of God, created Yaldabaoth. And he then decided he was going to be God. So to keep the angels in subjection, Yaldabaoth generated the material universe in the act of creation. However, Yaldabaoth emptied himself of his supreme power, and when Yaldabaoth breathed the soul into the first man, Adam, Sophia instilled in him the divine spark of the Spirit. So I like to believe that the soul is individual and holds our essence of who we are, and the Spirit is a connecting element which connects us all together, both of whatever we believe is greater than ourselves and between humanity. The Gnostic Gospels is a wider story, connected to this, which is quite interesting. In the end, Sophia throws Yaldabaoth into the abyss for claiming himself to be God. So it's quite interesting. But we also find in the Quran, again, the same story. This is the same kind of thing. Allah created Adam from clay that was molded into shape, then dried. And Allah breathed life into Adam and gave him knowledge that the angels did not have. So again, another faith path, same kind of story, breathing the breath of life into humankind. And then in another faith path, which I quite like the thought process, Byako Shinko Kai, which is about 1950s, I think this came together. They're dedicated to world peace and raising of planetary consciousness through prayer and world peace. So it's an interesting faith path. But according to Masami Sayonji, each conscious breath we take is a prayer for peace. I like the idea that each breath is being active, being purposeful, and being a prayer for something better, for us to come together. Breathing is the bond that connects our physical body with the great divine universe. It is a prayer of life that keeps this body joined with the universal divine mind. This is why I say that breathing and prayer are one and the same thing, and that all human beings are constantly praying, even though they might not be aware of it. The peaceful breathing approach introduced by Byako combines deep, harmonized breathing and positive words and phrases. So again, if you're looking for world peace and thinking that every breath is working towards that end, it's a nice mindset, a nice thought that you're working for something greater just with every breath. So in Taoism, the connection between the breath and qi, which is energy, the breath is more than just air. It is our connection with the Tao. Out of the Tao comes all things. So qi is energy which permeates everything. So taking in taking this into the body as well as food, water, etc., chi energy is able to enter our bodies and keeps us alive in the physical form. And without this energy, we would stop being alive. For Taoists, chi is the life force which keeps the body going and is the most important element in which we should endeavour to cultivate. So much so, it is said by Taoist masters that we can live on chi alone, so it becomes more important than food, even. Which is, I don't know whether I'd like to try that myself. You'd have to be well practiced to get to that level of mastery. But it's an interesting concept. I practice Tai Chi and Qigong, and it brings together a few elements, not just the breath, but the mind and the body. And together it works to bring health and balance in your life and physical being. I do it as part of what I practice, and also to keep physically fit. I had an operation on my knee a few years ago, so it helps the muscles, and I suppose with the breathing it keeps the air, the oxygen going around the body, and bringing and going into all the muscles and the blood supply, and that takes it where it needs to be. So take chi in through the breath, which then becomes our connection with the Tao. So most important thing in Taoism. Whatever our belief, the air we breathe is important, whether we think it's sacred or not. It gives life and we can't live without it. And by focusing on it, we can use it as a tool for life. How can we use it as a tool? People who are anxious, quite often, they have shallow breathing. And when you're breathing shallow, then you're not getting enough oxygen into your body. And that can create, or it can manifest in many different ways. And anxiety is the one thing. So by breathing deeper, you can create a more balanced, better balance, and help things like anxiety and stress. And talking of which, every time I went to the doctors to have my blood pressure taken, I would, it'd be high, and I'd be like, oh, I wonder what's happening here. And I'd have machines attached to me, and I'd go 24 hours with the machine, and it'd say, oh, everything was fine. And then the next time I went to the doctor to have my blood pressure taken, the same cycle happens again. I'm like, oh, there's obviously something wrong with me, deep-seated. And then one day I went to the doctors, and they're taking my blood pressure, and I'm realising that I'm holding my breath in anticipation. Because, nobody likes to go to the doctors, and I'm holding my breath, and the blood pressure's high, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, just take that again. So I started to breathe more deeply, and it takes a blood pressure reading again, and it was normal. I thought, well, these last few years I could have just been breathing normally, and that would have solved a lot of problems. But there you go, you hold your breath without even knowing it, unintentionally, and that has negative side effects on the body. So it's important to be aware of what you're doing and breathing. It's important. And this is not a new finding, obviously. This has been practiced for many thousands of years. The Buddhists, they use it when they're meditating. They count the breath, or they use it, the in breath and the out breath, and they may focus on that. And with that focus, it means that they are not being bombarded in their mind by many other thoughts, and they can get into that proper meditative state. It takes a lot of practice, but it brings a peaceful experience. So sometimes they have beads in which they count. There's 108 beads, which is a sacred number for the Buddhists. And with each breath, or it could be a breath, or it could be a mantra. Quite often they say a mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum is one of them. And everybody can use this technique. It's something that we all have. We don't have to have special equipment. it could be while you're waiting in the doctors or waiting in a queue. You just focus on the breath, and that can just bring a bit of balance to the body and to the mind. And so that becomes a tool in which we can use. So it's just a nice experiment next time you are sitting. Just have a realization of, am I breathing deeply? Am I not breathing deeply? I know Teresa, when she's sleeping, she breathes deeply, but then she stops. So that becomes a bit concerning. But she breathes deeply. And so she sleeps quite heavily until she stops breathing. And then she wakes up. But it's funny. So there's different, you might not know it, but there's different ways of breathing. There's yogic breathing. So this is supposed to be good for the organs. So if you were to take a breath, and normally, for a lot of people, the chest rises and falls. So you breathe, your lungs fills, your lungs it's got like, apparently for an adult, your lungs have got like a 6-litre lung capacity. And we don't fully use that. And we only use about 20% of the air that we actually breathe in. But yogic breathing breathes through the belly. So if you breathe and you extend the belly as you breathe in, and you let the breath out, and you suck in or let the belly go down as the breath goes out. So that's like massaging the organs, the internal organs. So that's why it's good for you in that respect. So it's a little bit different from maybe your normal like chest going up and down. Your belly goes up and down. But it's a different technique. It's used in various different organizations as way of becoming connected, way of just calming the mind, and also being good for you. So it's so it's also good for the mind. Taking in the breath of God or divine or source of all things. And with each breath, if you just focus on that and just let everything else go. I spent many years trying to develop that for myself. Suffering from migraines, I've probably mentioned this numerous times before, but when you suffer so long and have such a relief when it actually goes away, you want to tell everybody about it all the time. But this breathing technique helped me a lot, and it helped me calm the mind. And calming the mind helped me stop all this constant chatter in the mind, and it becomes stressful. My brain becomes stressed. So by stopping that, I was able to stop the migraines. It all started with breathing. And so there you go. It's a tool in which it can. I got to a point where I couldn't go on any longer, and I would have to stop work, and I don't know what I would have done after that. But by finding this method, this technique, it helped me carry on life normally again. So, we can use this in many different ways, and as a reminder, we should think more about, when an ambulance goes by, they might have to give CPR to somebody. When somebody is nervous or anxious, they could be using this as a technique. And there's many different ways in which we can communicate that. So there's a link there between when we were first born, we give them the breath, or we take our first breaths, and the breath of life, which is our connection with each other, and maybe something greater. So that's why I like to think the breath of God and the breath of life is more or less the same thing. It's a life-giving kind of element in which we wouldn't be here today. And so it's very important to just, not just be subconsciously active in our bodies, just doing it automatically, but just being aware, and then seeing how that feels, see how it sits, and bringing a bit of balance by altering that, through exercise, through just daily living. So, with that, we can go on to our next hymn. Spirit of earth, root and tree. So, the breath of life. So we can all count how many years we've been breathing, and so we come back to how we started, honouring this annual kind of breathing by celebrating a birthday. So. I hope you have many more. And I could say we could sing happy birthday, but I won't put you through that pain. Maybe later. But I think we might just have something else.
Keep talking.
Okay.
I'm not doing anything interesting.
Okay, we'll just ignore Judith walking to the back. So I think that's a wonderful, a wonderful age. I think it's still, to many at this point seems younger. As we get older, people are living more, and I like to think that I will at some point, very soon probably, get to that age. I do often feel like I'm. With a beard, I look a lot older than I am, so I keep thinking I'm going to shave this off because I'm getting somebody. Well, probably not, because when last time I shaved it off, my daughter says, "I'm not speaking to you until you grow it back," and that was it. So so that's why I always have a beard. But someday one of my neighbours came over to me one day and says. You keep going somewhere every day. I'm just wondering, where's it you keep going? Obviously knows a neighbour, knows all the ins and outs of the road. And I says, well, I got to work. Obviously thought I was of much greater age, but you know, not quite retiring age. But I think if we just I don't know, sing happy birthday.
Hope you've got plenty of breath.
Yes, just sing.
Lovely. Keep going. More breath.
Hey! So happy birthday, Kathleen, and I hope you have a great day. I don't know if you've got anything planned.
No, I was out last night, so peaceful day.
Yeah, anyway, good.
Sorry?
Was it with friends? And yeah, cool. And so I think we might have just one more thing for you here.
Kathy, all your friends.
All your friends. That's lovely. Thank you.
Very happy.
It's a very special birthday as well.
All birthdays are special, but when you get to a number like that, it really is so long. And she looks so good on it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I was told. I thought, nah. Yeah. So yeah.
Sometimes in the mornings I'm obnoxious.
Aren't we all?
No. So yeah, you're doing very well. You look very well, and I just hope that I look only half as much as well as you do. I must admit.
Hope I'm half as fit as she is.
I know.
Hope you're as fit as you are.
Oh well. I don't know in July. I wasn't feeling
No,
very
but
fit.
that was just that.
I had a virus and believe me, I wasn't.
Yeah. Well, we all have these blips, but
Yes.
yeah.
And then you
Always
get
back
over
to that.
them and
Yeah.
Yes.
Up again, yeah. 23.
Breath is very important, so keep doing it. So just before we depart for tea, I'd just like to say a few words just before we break. So thank you for reflecting with me the harvest of our past. And as we depart, let our mind be present on our forward journeys. Let each breath be a reminder of our connection together, and that together we create our community. We each breathe the breath of life, or the breath of God. May we remember this in our time of need. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we...
Remember that next time I'm going to get a blood pressure checked as well.
yeah, that came as a surprise.
Obviously I've got white coats in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.